I don't really know how to start this, so I'm interviewing Horse Strangler today, one of the creators of DE Blackgold. I have some questions for him, and yeah. Uh,
Hi guys.
all right. Firstly, how did you and Holiest Cow meet?
We met working on a mod a pretty long time ago. I think maybe like around, you say like 2013. Working on a little source mod at the time, and then after that, we kind of started a work relationship doing CS:GO stuff.
And you guys started. When did you start working together? Around 2013.
Yeah, I would say so. Black Hole was one of our first maps that we put together, and I think we started that sometime around, yeah, I would say early 2013, maybe like mid 2013.
How did you guys come up with the idea for Blackgold?
So at the time that Black Hole was designed, originally Holiest Cow was doing it on his own, um, and he had put a layout together. And I think he was maybe like 2 or 3 months into working on it off and on, and he had showed it to me. And initially, when he had shown me the really early concept of it, we were going to pretty much use just like old Half-Life 2 assets and art on it, so it was going to look just really standard CS:GO and stuff like that. And he was telling me the concept was an oil rig, so I joined him on the project to do a bunch of art for it. We had conversations about, we wanted this to look good. We have to probably make a lot of custom stuff. So I think summer, maybe close to fall, is when I joined him on the project, and that's when we started making a bunch of art for it.
Uh, were you or him? Was him? He was he the one making most of the models, or was it like an even thing?
So with Black Gold, Holly's Cow was primarily in charge of layout and level design. So basically, he would block in a lot of geometry, and then I would kind of just figure out how we wanted areas to look like. For the early versions of Black Hole, we had an additional artist on. His name was Mike Terrett, and he had did the original like oil drums, the big oil crates, and he also designed the crane. But everything else, like the world textures, the piping, and drill towers and drill elements and stuff like that, and atmosphere, ocean, all that stuff was designed by me later on.
All right. Did both of you have previous experience mapping?
Yeah, so for me, I've been working with Source since I'd say maybe like 2006. I've had the opportunity now to work on a lot of, uh, I don't know if I call them high profile, but licensed Source engine games and stuff like that. And so I've worked on a couple of other Source mods that were pretty popular back in the day, like Source Forts and Overwatch and stuff like that, which, of course, now if you Google that, you won't find that because of Overwatch coming out from Blizzard. But Holiest Cow, I think, had been mapping for around that time too, but he hadn't had as much experience in art. So yeah, I would say maybe he started like sometime around like 2009. I think maybe like 2010. That's when he got into like source modding.
All right. Uh, how difficult was it to start actually creating the map?
So I think one of the biggest challenges that we faced early on with making Black Hole was making it a believable oil rig environment. And one of the funniest things about it is that generally oil rigs are very privatized properties, so you don't really have people taking pictures of them. Like it's against the law in most scenarios, and also like contracts prohibit employees on these rigs from like taking pictures for like corporate espionage reasons and stuff like that. Basically, people don't want to give away like how they're doing certain things. So finding resources for stuff that was like right on the oil rig itself was really difficult. We'd always find like screenshots and reference from helicopter shots or aerials and other simple stuff like that. But when it came to actually art passing it, I think one of the biggest challenges we faced was just the complexity of an oil rig. And even right now, with the current iteration of Black Gold, it doesn't really look like an oil rig, which a couple of people have noticed, and I definitely agree with. If it were, there would be like way more pipes and you know crazy amounts of vertical levels and just so much more complexity to it. But I think overall, what we ended up with kind of worked better for gameplay. It's not like this super busy environment with like tons of different levels. We kind of had to scale it back to make it balance with CSGO. And even then, it wasn't a super balanced layout, but it's something that I think could have been like way worse if we had went with a more like traditional, realistic approach to that type of environment. So we kind of added things that you wouldn't find up there on an oil rig. Like you'd never see giant cargo containers on a platform because those things are just like huge. Like there's no space for those anywhere in real life.
All right. Is there anything from a like previous incarnations of Black Gold that you wish would have worked out?
Um, in the original layout, we had a lot of crazy stuff, which was pretty funny. Kind of mirroring what I said with the art stuff. Like we had, I think at one point, Black Gold early on was like almost three individual levels
Three
or
levels.
individual floors. So like the building that has a little break room right above mid, like you were able to go inside that whole thing, and it had like three stories inside of it, and you could go all the way up to like the catwalk that's colored black right now in the current map that's like connecting to the rooftops of where the crane drill platform is and stuff like that. But all that stuff we had to remove because it was just too much. I don't think there's anything specifically that I wish we would have kept. I wish we could have like put a little bit more detail on the lower floors, but it was just kind of like because the nature of the map was very difficult to bring it on par for performance. So we had to like get rid of a lot of stuff like that. Like we had a little bit more complexity, I think, early on with some of like the assets and the pipes and stuff like that, and we kind of had to scale that back because it just ended up being too much, or there was just like too many things players would get stuck on, or too many crazy opportunities for people to get crazy headshot angles, or bombs stuck in really silly places.
All right. What about things that you wish wouldn't have worked out? Like things you don't currently like about the map, but it's too big to change.
Um, I think big to change is a really good way to describe it. I kind of do wish that Black Gold looked a little bit more like an oil rig. I think there were certain steps that we could have taken back then to kind of go for that. When we were making Black Gold, though, we were kind of like our initial goal with it was not only just to make an oil rig, but the color theme and the presentation of it was something that I felt personally hadn't really been done in CS:GO that much. Every map was kind of really desaturated, shades and hues of brown and gray and stuff like that. And there were definitely some really beautiful custom maps, but even those kind of went, to these really muted tones, like old maps like Museum and stuff like that, which are awesome maps, but like they were all very muted in their use of color palette. So we kind of wanted to do something that was really saturated and just brought, or not necessarily saturated, but just brought much more color to the scene and stuff like that, and really stood out. So if you looked at it, you'd be like, oh, that's Black Gold. Like I recognize that map out of anything else. There's like nothing that looks like it could take place in Italy or in France or in like some place in the Midwest or something like that. It was very, very discernible. But in terms of the things that didn't work out because of that, I think one of the biggest problems that I wish wasn't really there right now, or I wish that we could have done, is just like I said, the complexity of getting an oil rig in there. With the current art theme choice, I think that we could have went a little bit more ham with it, but at the time, I think there just wasn't enough time to put as much effort into it as we would have wanted to. So we kind of just got it to the place that it was, and then we just moved on to doing other projects and just taking those lessons learned. Um, Again, with the whole art theme thing, it was really just the ambition was really more behind just like how can we make this map visually stand out and do something new. It wasn't until like maps like Season started entering the game where like there was much more heavier use of brighter colors and like really clean modern aesthetic and stuff like that, and that was kind of something we were trying to do with Black Gold, but I think we weren't able to hit the vision, but we got pretty close.
I gotta say, it is a very vivid yellow.
Yeah,
It,
it's very
it
yellow.
has
That's
that.
always a meme, right? Like everybody's like, when's your next yellow map coming out? And I think the choice with yellow really is just that it's one of the only colors that is readable under almost every light environment. Like red and green and blue have ways to be really, really can like really just kind of like warp silhouette and stuff like that, or can kind of really like absorb other color and shape into them. And yellow is kind of like this color that's able to be desaturated, and it doesn't really look that bad. You know, you desaturate red and it kind of turns pink, or you know, blue turns into teal, and green kind of just becomes like this weird like limey color. And it's like yellow is the only color that still can kind of work with that and remain readable, which is, I guess, says a lot, because I mean that's like the number one construction color on, you know, machinery and stuff like that.
All right. How close is the current version of black gold to the original idea?
Oh, it's super different now. Like I said earlier too, we got rid of a lot of the stuff. You know, like some interior buildings you used to be able to walk into, some of the rooftops you could even get onto, which was pretty crazy. Like at that time, it would have been a much better just like aim map, or you know, like I forgot the current game mode where you're like spawning with a bunch of weapons. For some reason, I completely forgot it. But you know, it would have been like better for stuff like that. And at one time, I think we even thought maybe like it could have been a hostage map instead. But yeah, it's changed. It's changed a lot, and thanks to like the operations too, we've been able to apply a lot of feedback to it, and it's definitely gotten into a better place now because of that.
How did you feel when Valve first contacted you about including the map in Counter-Strike?
Pretty excited for sure, but at the same time, a little just cautious about it, because we had never gone through the process before, and at that time, I was kind of just really getting into the workshop. I had done so much modding and so much indie development at the time that I had no idea what really to expect with the CS:GO workshop, and there weren't a lot of stories out there about like, you know, how successful people were being with it, or what Valve even was really looking forward to. When they contacted us, blackgold actually was like way more just saturated than it was right now. Like we had a bunch of just things that looked crazy about it, so I was kind of surprised at the same time. I think Valve saw the potential and just how unique it felt, and from there on, we kind of just stayed in contact with them to make a bunch of changes. Like a lot of the way black hole looks now too is also because of just like Valve feedback and stuff like that. So we were definitely pretty excited about it, and I think it really helped get the map into shape to just feel like it could be something that works in CS:GO.
And on the subject of Valve, how difficult was the journey between when they first contacted you and when they needed the final release for the operation?
So I'm just trying to think real quick, because there's certain things we're kind of like stuck to agreements with, so we can't really talk about too much of like the very specific processes. But um, usually when Valve contacts artists or designers or mappers or whoever worked on the map, it's always a group thing. Like, you know, they'll leave a comment on the workshop page, and they'll be like, hey, you know, this map looks pretty cool, and it'll either be like, we think it has potential, or we think it plays well. It's never like a really concrete, just like, oh, this is going to go in the game right away or anything like that. It's like Valve's always constantly looking for maps. They're always looking for like just that opportunity for potential. And I think what they're really looking forward to right there is just the willingness of the designers to be committed to it, to be committed to the improvement and change, and being open to iterative feedback on that. So Black Gold, I don't know how other maps have faced it. I'm sure some maps have been at a stage where it was just a lot easier for them to make the choice of whether or not the map would go in. But with Black Gold, I remember it being done in like the summer of 2013, or no, not summer, like late fall of 2013. And we were like, man, this is so dope. We're really excited. And, you know, we really want to get in an operation. And I think Operation Payback came out at the time. I can't remember which one it was. And we weren't in it. So we were kind of bummed out. But, you know, we knew that there was still a long way to go with the map. I think we were improving the map from fall of 2013 all the way until it finally shipped in the summer of 2014. So just a lot of little changes were going on in between there and that. And also during that time, we were working on another map, a brand new one called D-Import. But something I kind of want to add too is that, you know, for other workshoppers that are listening to this, the great thing about Valve is that they don't necessarily just shut down maps. They don't say, oh, this map is terrible and we'll never look at it again. You know, if a map looks like it has potential, and if you keep improving it, and if you keep showing the enthusiasm, to make it more balanced, to make it funner for competitive play, to make it look better. Valve will play test it again. They will recognize that and they'll be like, we'll reconsider it for a future operation or whatever. They never just like give you a hard no and then just throw your map into like the trash can or something like that. Like they'll always keep it on a list as like something that has the opportunity to go in at some point based on how committed the designer is to the project.
And in its original, well, not the first operation it was in, Operation Breakout.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any changes you wish you could have made before it got removed, like before the operation had ended?
Um, well, with the operation, we kind of wanted to let it sit a little bit. Like we just wanted to see how much feedback we got at a community level from that. And we got some good stuff on Reddit, and we also got some good stuff on like the workshop pages and other forums and stuff like that. But we kind of waited until after the OP was done to really see how it was doing. We were really surprised to see that Black Gold was like the most played map in that operation, and that really just kind of shocked us. I think we kind of always had that like self doubt about how successful the map would be or how balanced it was, and we definitely personally felt that it wasn't the most balanced map in the operation for sure, or even really like in general maps that had gone into previous operations. But I think I think one of the things that was really interesting to see was that there was so much appreciation for it just being this fresh thing to play on. So after the operation had finished, we had kind of just let the map sit. We made a few changes and a few edits, but I don't think we ever really assumed that the map was going to be like played at the same level. So we kind of just sadly moved on to doing other things and just didn't think about it too much. Yeah, I wish we would have patched a little bit more. There were like nasty sight lines and stuff, but this operation, we had the opportunity to do that. Like I think as soon as it shipped again, there were a bunch of things that we were like, okay, we got to get rid of this. Like this is bad. So we went back into it and we took a bunch of feedback on Reddit and we made all those changes in a week, and then that shipped. I think like Tuesday of last week or Tuesday of this week. I mean.
All right. What was the community's original reaction to the map, and how did you guys feel about that?
The original community reaction was pretty interesting. We didn't really have too much negative outlook on it. We definitely had some people that were like, "Oh, this is too much. It might not work in CS:GO. This is too bright. This is too this and that." Like I said, when we initially shipped it, it was like really just, it was almost like this could have been a Mirror's Edge map. Like it was just so vibrant and so saturated. And I think the changes that we made later on really kind of made it feel more like a CSGO map. We had much more somewhat muted tones. Having atmospheric fog helped a lot in terms of just like unifying color value and structure and stuff like that, and making everything a little bit more readable. But I think at the time it was just, yeah, I think at the time people enjoyed it, and we were still really surprised. We were, like I said, we've always been really doubtful. I think that kind of just always comes with the terrain of like being an artist. You're always somewhat doubtful of your own work, but people responded to it pretty well, and we were pretty happy with that. So we just kept going with it.
Between Breakout and when Valve contacted you for Hydra, you hadn't really worked on it, correct?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we just kind of left it alone for a very long time.
And how did you feel about it making its way back into Counter Strike?
Well, I have mixed feelings about that. Like I'm really happy that it did, because it's always great to see your work come to life again, or come to life again, because it's like when you do something and you make it and you just put it behind, like that's it, it's done. Even when you like in the game industry, when you make a game, it's like we shipped that in 2015 and that was a great time, but now we're doing new stuff. It's always just about new stuff. And at the same time, it was also really about new stuff for me. We had made maps that we felt played much better than Black Gold, looked better than Black Gold, were more weren't so much the ambition was reined in more. You know, we were kind of hitting the marks that we wanted to hit with those new projects like Junction and Import. But I was kind of just sad to see it going at the same time because it was like I felt that a lot of other workshoppers had worked really hard to make some really great maps that made it under the deadline. And when I had found out that three, past maps were going into the game, I definitely kind of felt like, man, that's gonna make some people not happy because that's kind of messed up. I really would have preferred that if I had an opportunity to go into this operation, it would have been like because of import or something like that instead of black gold again. I'm really appreciative of it, but I really feel that like old maps should have had, or new maps, I'm sorry, should have had a chance to go in instead. But hopefully, next operation won't take like another year to come out, so then it won't be so bad.
Yeah, amen to that, dude. Uh,
Yeah.
were you surprised when Valve contacted you about re-adding the map to Counter-Strike?
Oh yeah, totally. Big time. Yeah. I didn't. I never, like I said, I never expected Black Gold to go back in like at all. We were like, this is done, and this is all like that was one of my major worries too. I was like, oh man, we're gonna get ass blasted on Reddit because it's like people are gonna be like, oh, this map doesn't play good anymore. It's just the quality of the workshop has been rising constantly. Uh, artists have been doing better and better and better stuff. People have been doing way cooler things. So that's also hand in hand with why I felt like just new maps should have gone in. So that was kind of just like a really interesting thing to experience. But I mean, even though regardless of that, we were still really happy about it and really excited.
All right. The community seems to be divided on the map, on black gold. Whether it's a good map, whether it's a bad map, whether it plays well, all the usual stuff. How do you feel about that? Which side do you take there?
So yeah, that's interesting because earlier too I said Black Hole was the most played in the operation, which we found surprising. Um, a lot of it was like gun game, so that's cool. Deathmatch and gun game. So that's we appreciate that it was getting play. I think we definitely never really felt that this is like a map that you can MM in. Like you're not gonna want to rank up on this map with your buds. It's. I mean, some people are a little bit more aggressive about that in terms of like this is not a competitive map. Like it's never going to compete against something like Cash for sure. It's we never really intended it to either. We just try to like take that layout and make it just as fun and as playable as we possibly could. And people really have a great interest in Black Gold, and if they want to continue to see it, we're down for updating it all the time, and we're invested in like making it a better map. You know, I think the most unhealthiest thing a designer can have is just like this shut off attitude where it's like, well, it's done and it's in the game and we've made money off of it, so whatever. We don't care. Like that's not great. So we're definitely invested in making it better, and we definitely all agree on the map that like it could grow, it could be better, it could be more competitive and stuff like that. But kind of thinking about it too, there's just the open nature of the map and like how just spread out it is, I think makes it very difficult. So, again, we just kind of took those lessons from Black Hole and we applied it to other maps, which I think is kind of like our way of saying like, hey, we were listening to you guys and, we understand how you feel about the way Black Hole plays.
And you talked about updating it, based on the feedback. Is there anything you really hope to accomplish with this second incarnation of Black Gold?
Um, so there's some things that I definitely want to do personally. And some of it was already happening last week, or well, Tuesday of this week. I keep saying last week because it just feels like this week's already done. But some of the things that we introduced, like we added tarps, we cleaned up sight lines, we made a lot of player movement sections feel smoother. I still got to go back on some things and do that. We have like ramps and things like that. We got rid of like just crazy boosts. We got rid of a lot of grading, like a ton of grading. So combat on the bomb sites itself works a lot better. It's much more involved and engaging. Grenade usage feels like because of those changes, grenade usage feels a lot better now. Um, I think like the way you can approach B site feels kind of weird. I don't know. if those are things that we want to change. The most difficult thing too about it is that we don't get like this really concise input that comes back. It's kind of very, all over the place. Some people like the way it plays. Some people think A should be easy or A should be harder, and it's always just teetering, big pendulum swing type of like feedback. So I think personally we just kind of want to try to make choices where things play a lot better. Sightlines are the biggest problem, like I said, and boosting in really ridiculous spots and things like that. So I think the first thing is just getting the map to feel like it's much more straightforward and it doesn't feel like you can get shot from a million different places. I think we've already made really good progress with like solving that problem. So it's probably one of the first major things we're gonna try to knock out this operation. We've got like 10 more weeks to go with this operation, I think. So we're definitely gonna just try to get in as much as we can.
And do you plan on continuing work on Black Gold after the operation is ended?
That one's tough. Like, there's definitely been some consideration of doing like a real HD update to it. Like a lot of people kind of theorized that because it wasn't on the workshop, we were doing like this big overhaul, and sadly we weren't. It was just not on the workshop because of like some server issues that Steam was having, and we couldn't have like two separate Steam entries for a new version of Black Gold. So because the BSP already existed in the game, we couldn't like call the map something else, like Black Gold Redux or like Black Gold V2 or something like that, because you can't ship a map like called something silly like that. So we had to like overwrite the old workshop version and set it to private because things were getting all like nasty and messed up. But I don't know if we'll keep working on it past the operation. It's hard. It's hard to know. If there's like more appreciation for map and if people really want to like see it be improved, I think we'll probably go back and do that. And there's a lot of things we've already tried to go back to and redo, but I think another thing too is like for an environment artist, it's always just like, I think it's important to also just always move on and kind of be like, hey, let's just go do some cool stuff somewhere else and try some other locations because it can get kind of tiring doing the same thing for such a long time.
And would you like to see Black Gold added as a permanent addition to CS:GO, whether it be active duty or not?
Uh, that would be really cool. I don't think it ever will, honestly, but I mean, that'd be cool if it did for sure. Like, I would love it if just more maps in general, just not even like Black Gold. Like, I think there's a lot of really great maps right now in the operations that have shipped. That would be really really cool if they just were, like officially in the game. Like a lot of people want Season to be in the game, which I think definitely should. Agency, fantastic map, even though a lot of people hate hostage maps for some reason. I don't know. But, I mean, that'd be really cool. Another thing to mention there, too, is that, like Valve with operations, they're always trying to just make play styles for everybody when they ship maps. So I don't think that necessarily even like when a map goes in, it means that it's like super balanced. It's just, it's just ways to play, your way, basically. So if people want to see it as like a gun game map or something like that, or people want to see it as like a casual type of map, we'd be into doing that and trying to balance it more for that experience. If Valve like ever said, hey, we want to put it in the game officially.
And according to the Steam Workshop, you are working on other maps as well. One could
Yeah.
assume you'd like to see those also appear in Counter-Strike, correct?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And out of those maps, which one did you like working on the most?
I think the one that I like working on the most was the most recent one that I did called Junction, and I felt really proud of that one. And reception was really great for it on the CS:GO Reddit and communities and stuff like that. There's definitely some tweaking to go for it. I got to get some things to be balanced a little bit more. There's a couple of like little general bits here and there that I think can play better. I think the challenge with making custom maps is that they get played on custom servers, but it's not really until you go in the game where it's like your map's really made it. Your map's really legitimately being played now. Like people are really forced to like sit there and do a real 5v5, and that's when the competitive information really starts, coming in and stuff like that. And that's where you can make the biggest leaps in terms of improving your layout and your gameplay in your map or whatever it is. But Junction is a map that took a lot of what we did with Black Gold and a lot of what we did with Import and combined that. I was really inspired by maps like Overpass and Nuke. I wanted to do something where like it has that bomb site on top of another site type of design. We did a huge amount of playtesting on that one. We had pro players come on it. We had Valve employees play on it. We had ESCA guys play on it. We had just months of playtesting. I think all the art was done for that map in like 3 months. And during that entire process of arting it, we had just like playtests every weekend for that entire 3-month period. And then another month went by where we just did like straight up, let's adjust things for gameplay and do some like last minute, ESEA guy play testing. So I think overall it's one of the most successful maps that I've made. It's really balanced. I feel it's competitively viable. I think it's like it still retains a little bit of that ambition that we've had with previous maps. It's not like a super straightforward map like Cache, which I understand is like the tip of the top, and I agree with that. But I still kind of want to make stuff that's a little that still kind of challenges CS:GO's visual reception and like what you can get away with in the game and stuff like that. But as far as adhering to more traditional type of competitive gameplay, I think Junction really does that a lot better. We went back into Import too, and we had some ESCA guys play that, and that's a lot more balanced now as well. So, I mean, I'd be happy if any of them go into the game, but Junction is definitely the map that I had the most fun making for sure. That was super exciting to do.
You said your favorite map to make was obviously Junction. What about your favorite map overall? Like out of all of them?
Overall, I would definitely say Junction 2 again. Yeah, definitely Junction. Blackgold was dope. Like, that was really dope making that, but there's a lot of errors in it, flaws and stuff like that. And it was just part of the whole learning process of, getting used to the CSGO style. I've been doing like Half-Life and Portal and Left 4 Dead for so long, so I've always been working in a single-player design environment. When you switch over from single-player to multiplayer, the transition can be pretty rough sometimes. It's just you don't realize how shifting a barrel 2 units to the left suddenly opens up this crazy op sideline. There's just so much opportunity for even the littlest of most innocent changes to like completely destroy how an area plays and feels. So I think with Black Gold we definitely didn't like really respect that as much, and with maps like Junction and Import we made sure to be a lot better at that.
And what's your favorite like map that you didn't work on?
That's my favorite map that I haven't worked on.
Correct. Like Valve
That
made
one's
or
pretty.
other community maps.
That one's pretty tough. There's a lot of really cool maps out there. Oh, God, it's tough. I mean, I like a lot of maps that FMP Sean has made. Um, I think it's easier for me to say like my favorite workshoppers like RZL, Yanzel, FMP, Skybex has done some cool stuff. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, there's so many workshoppers out there. Agency is probably really cool. Agency really inspired me a lot artistically. D-Light from TED, super great map. That one's in the current operation. If there's a map that should go in game, I should feel like that should go in game permanently. Like that map is it's I wouldn't say it gives Cache a run for its money, but it's pretty close. Like it's really just this fun organic map to play on. D Season also really inspired me as an artist. That map was just really really awesome to play in. Thrill in the current operation is really cool. Zoo is also cool. Man, there's so many maps. But yeah, as far as the ones that really stood out the most to me, those were I think the ones that like really either inspired me a lot as a map maker, or I think those basically should just go in game.
All right. With working on different maps and different mods for the source engine and whatnot, has that led to anything bigger in your lives, like jobs?
Oh yeah, for sure. I had an opportunity to do a couple of licensed source stuff early on, like I had mentioned. I think it's always kind of scary because you don't really know where any of it's going to go, but it all just builds a portfolio. CS:GO, I think, contributed the most to that though, because that was really like the high impact, more modern looking stuff. Um, Maps like Import and Junction landed me a job at where I work right now, which is at Gunfire Games, and we just announced working on Darksiders 3, so that's pretty exciting to do. We've got some other things in development, but can't talk about that stuff or else I'll get killed. But I mean, yeah, it's crazy. It's a wild ride. Like I have been modding for such a long time, and even working with a source engine, it's definitely a process. You know, it's kind of scary because there's a lot of room for it to make you kind of complacent since it's a very specific way to design stuff. It's like very kind of old school. So that's also kind of why I've been pushing my later maps the way I have. Um, I'm working on another map right now, Quarry, which should come out like in a couple weeks, and that's also going to be something that I think is going to be almost as good as Junction, or hopefully as good. But I'm kind of just using CS:GO now to like just push that boundary of art with what we can do in source and stuff. And a lot of workshoppers I think are now too. So it's been really great to just kind of like use CS:GO as this way to like build up a portfolio of design, and then also get into operations with if that ends up happening. So I think a lot of people have landed jobs because of CS:GO. I think I'm trying to remember what's his name who did insertion. Oskmas is his name. Like I know he works at Dice right now. There's another guy, the guy who worked at an agency, which I think was Putty. He also worked, I think he worked at Dice as well. I can't remember. But yeah, there's a lot of really great industry dudes that have been able to be successful off of the CS:GO workshops. That's always been really cool to see.
And you were talking about your next map, Quarry. Do you have any more plans after that, or do you think you're gonna stop at Quarry?
Um, I'm a bit I'm a bit concerned with just how much time this operation has taken. Like if I could basically just do full time CS:GO, that'd be really dope. Like I like working in studio environments and working in the industry professionally is really exciting, but also making CS:GO maps is really fun. I got into game design to be a level designer originally, and I transitioned into creating environment art because that's just kind of where the industry went. Like you couldn't just be a good designer anymore. You know, you had to be able to make things look pretty, and you had to be able to make pretty art and stuff like that, or at least something else. You know, couldn't just be like this like one faceted thing. You had to be multifaceted. So um, it's kind of interesting in that regard. But with Quarry, we're getting pretty close to finishing it. I would like to do stuff in the future. It's like I said, it's really just about whether or not this operation, the upcoming one, is going to take as long to come out. And I think a lot of other workshoppers feel that way. I think people are just kind of wondering like what was going on with the update. What was really taking Valve. What was really sucking up all their time or resources, or is the CS:GO team very small right now? Maybe they don't have a lot of manpower. I'm kind of feeling like even overall, while CS:GO is fun to make maps for, it's definitely like treated like the redheaded stepson in the family in terms of Valve games. Like Dota just gets so much attention, and I used to do a lot of Dota art too, and I've been very fortunate to be very successful in the Dota 2 workshop. But it's like the amount of money that gets put into that game is like just crazy unreal compared to CS:GO. So I'm just kind of hoping like CS:GO gets more love. I think it does, and I'm hoping that just with workshoppers pushing quality more and making better maps, that hopefully, that raises CS:GO's like quality of life in general. Like we were supposed to get those UI updates, I guess, with this operation, and that never happened. So it's just things like that are kind of like really concerning. Like I'm hoping CS:GO isn't like just kind of getting tucked under the rug, slowly but surely.
All right. Lastly, do you have anything to say to aspiring mappers and modders?
Sure. Um, I think one of the most important things if you want to get in the game industry or if you want to see success with your work is, the old tired cliche of like just keep working. But I think one of the most important things about seeing improvement in your work is just, really feeling if it's something that you enjoy doing. If design isn't something that you feel like you can transition into, then try art, or try sound, or try, other areas of game design. Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of, get stuck with ambition really early on. And ambition is like the number one killer of motivation and desire to keep trying. People are like, oh, I see other maps that look really great, or I see, other art that looks super crazy, and it's like I'll never get there. And it's like you just got to keep doing it. You gotta keep doing it. But at the same time, it's not just about throwing yourself at it until you get it. It's about just reining in the ambition. Knowing what you can do and what you can't do. And there's no shame in not releasing anything. There's really no shame in like making a map or two and being like, damn, those are never going to see the light of the day because I'm at like the last 25% and I don't feel like finishing it. Like if you just don't, then that's the problem. Like if you've been spending months or even a year or two on a map, that's, just move on to something else, try something else. Like personally, I have a whole mod that I have shelved that probably was like 7 hours of gameplay. That's a huge amount of content to just like put into a chest and never release it. And I've also had CS:GO maps and Portal 2, Left 4 Dead stuff, and all kinds of other things that I've done that have just never come out. So it's everything is a growing experience. Everything teaches you how to be better at what you do. So even if you don't finish it, even if you don't release it, you're still just making stuff. You're still just learning ways to become efficient and make better looking art or make funner looking stuff or funner stuff to play. I meant to say. So all of it just contributes. You always just got to just keep going forward and don't be like too hard on yourself.
All right. Thank you for your time here today.
Sure, dude.
Uh, gotta say, uh, yeah, thank you. This has been a really cool opportunity for me. Uh,
Sure, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. It was cool talking about Black Hole and CS:GO in general.
any other things you want to say before I end it?
Nope, I think it should be it.
All right. Thank you again.